There are plenty of bass amp plugins out there, and I personally have used quite a few of them. I tend to use Parallax by Dsp a lot, or in general just a guitar amp plugin to get my distorted, gritty bass tone. But there's one plugin that I started using recently for my bass tone, and it's a game changer. In my last video, I showed you guys how I like to use Saturn to sculpt my drum rooms and add mid-range energy to my guitars. But in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to build a bass tone from the ground up using Saturn. If you guys like this video, then please consider subscribing and give it a like because it really does help out the channel. So here we are in Rupert, and at the moment, I'm working on writing a new track, which you guys will get to hear in all its glory very soon. But to get started, I'm using Gin Bass by Submission Audio for my bass. And throughout this, I'm obviously going to do a lot of EQing and compressing. And some of the EQ moves or amounts of compression will have to be different for you depending on what bass you're using. But for anyone using Gin Bass, you can just copy exactly what I do. Now, I've printed out the bass to audio rather than using MIDI because that's just generally what I like to do. But if you'd like to keep it as MIDI, you can do that. But I'm just going to go through now and add all the plugins that I'll be using. Now, since Saturn will kind of be acting as a bass amp head, I'll need a cab for that. So for that, I'm just using Neural DSP's Omega amp, but you can use any cab impulse you want. So to start, I'm just going to add some compression to add a bit of consistency to the bass sound, but you won't need to do a lot if you're using MIDI bass like I am, because generally speaking, it should be fairly consistent. So for this, I'm just aiming for -3 to -4 dB of gain reduction. Next, we're going to jump into Saturn and add 2 bands. Now, where you place these bands will depend on what bass you're using and what tuning you're going to be playing in, but where I've put mine should be generally where yours go. On the middle and high bands, we're just going to change the saturation type to heavy saturation to kind of emulate a bass distortion pedal. And for the middle band, I'm just going to have it set between 70 to 80%. And for the high band, I'm just going to crank the hell out of it. Now, using the pre-EQ, I'm just going to sculpt the bass sound going into the distortion. And all I'm looking for are any honky or annoying mid-range frequencies to tame. I also tend to like boosting around 1.5K to accentuate the string noise of the bass, but again, you can kind of have a play around and see what sounds good to you. So for the post EQ, I'm pretty much just going to do some final sculpting, taking out any lingering frequencies that are poking out. You'll notice I'm taking out a lot of low end as well, which may seem a bit backwards, but I have another bass track dedicated solely to the low end of the bass. So if anything, I should be taking out more. So now what I like to do is just solo my bass grit tone with my guitars and make sure there aren't any frequencies poking through. You want your bass tone to complement your guitar tone, not to overtake it. So finally, all you need to do is make sure the levels between your guitar and bass are set correctly. So that's all I really do to get this killer bass tone. So give it a crack, try experimenting with it, and send me your mixes. If there's anything else you guys want to learn in terms of music production, mixing, mastering, just leave it down in the comments and I'll try to make a video on that.